The connection between art and mental health issues is a hot topic of debate. Artists that suffer from and are impacted by psychiatric problems have a wide range of experiences. Even while a definitive relationship between art and mental health is difficult to establish, psychiatric diseases, like any other state of mind, may alter individuals and their creative output. Artists such as Francisco de Goya, Vincent van Gogh, Edvard Munch, Frida Kahlo, and Mark Rothko are known to have struggled with mental illness at some time throughout their life. Their work expresses their struggle and mental state in a unique way. This article video looks at how these 5 renowned painters' works may have been inspired by mental health issues. Francisco de Goya's Los Caprichos and the artist's mental illness. Francisco de Goya, a Spanish painter, was born in 1746 and died in 1828. He started painting lessons when he was 13 or 14 years old and subsequently worked as a court painter for the Spanish royal family. His album Los Caprichos, a collection of 80 prints from 1799 that critically remark on the political and social climate of the period, was an independent effort not commissioned by the royal family. The artist's self-portrait is depicted in the first image in the series. In the year 1792, Francisco de Goya became deaf as a result of a terrible disease that was never identified. Hallucinations, vision impairment, disorientation, and partial paralysis were all symptoms of his condition. There are various speculations concerning the sickness that Francisco de Goya may have had, but no one has come up with a definitive diagnosis. Lead poisoning, syphilis, malaria, typhoid fever, and meningitis are all considered probable ailments by researchers. The artist and his mental health struggles. Francisco de Goya may have had mental health issues such as sadness, mood swings, and hallucinations as a result of the severity of his sickness and suspected lead poisoning. Goya noted in a letter that paintings such as Yard with Lunatics, 1793-4, helped him employ his imagination. Embarrassed in thinking of my infirmities, Francisco de Goya's style evolved once he went deaf, and it's possible that it was impacted by his mental health issues. He used darker and frequently scary pictures instead of bright colors and happy themes. The artist's plates from the Los Caprichos series are an excellent example of this shift. Halle Plucker, 1799, depicts 3 men standing over a female figure with wings, one of whom appears to bite aggressively at her right wing. Vincent van Gogh. Vincent van Gogh was a Dutch painter who lived from 1853 to 1890. When he was 27 years old, the Dutch painter began his profession as an artist. Despite the fact that Van Gogh only painted for 10 years, from 1880 to 1890, he produced an incredible amount of works. He willingly joined the St. Paul de Massol institution in 1889 owing to mental health issues, and while there, he created various works of art. One of his most renowned paintings, The Starry Night, 1887, was inspired by a scene near the institution. In 2016, a group of academics gathered at the Vincent van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam for a symposium to study the ailments the artist may have suffered from. They came to the conclusion that Vincent van Gogh had bipolar illness, borderline personality disorder, alcoholism, and psychotic episodes. Van Gogh also ate an imbalanced diet and drank a lot of wine, which might have exacerbated his illness. Vincent van Gogh's studio at Saint-Remy. The representation of numerous topics and landscapes of Saint-Remy is one clear manner in which Van Gogh's mental health difficulties inspired his painting. Due of his stint at the asylum, the artist integrated these into his work. James C. Harris, a professor of psychiatry and behavioral science at Johns Hopkins University, has written many essays on the subject of art and mental illness. The Starry Night, according to James C. Harris, might be a representation of how Van Gogh's health stabilized while he was in the institution. The cloud-like pictures in the middle of the sky take on the classic form of a mandala, Harris said, a symmetrical structure that commonly develops as psychological issues are resolved. Harris, 2002. The black cypress, on the other hand, might signal the onset of psychological issues, as cypress is a symbol of death in the area where Van Gogh was residing at the time. Edvard Munch, a Norwegian artist, was born in 1863 and died in 1944. Loss, health issues, and an extremely rigid and devout father impacted his youth. Munch was able to develop worried thoughts and a strong fear of death and hell as a result of this. From the moment of my birth, the angels of fear, worry, and death were by my side, accompanied me out while I played, followed me in the light of springtime and in the splendor of summer, says one of the artist's most famous quotes. When I closed my eyes in the evening, they stood by my side, threatening me with death, hell, and eternal damnation. And I'd often wake up at night, wide-eyed, wondering, am I in hell? Edvard Munch's paintings are notable for combining his emotions and psychological states. Many of Edvard Munch's paintings, like Melancholy, 1892, and Despair, 1892, represent mental emotions. Both paintings depict a lonely individual who appears to be engrossed in his thoughts while looking down. Following the death of Munch's father, the paintings were made. The artist's emotional state deteriorated as a result of his father's death, and he began to use even more alcohol, despite the fact that Edvard Munch suffered from melancholy, anxiety, and most likely schizophrenia. He resisted receiving treatment for a long time. My pains are a part of myself and my art, he said. They are indistinguishable from me. And their annihilation would result in the annihilation of my art. I'd like to preserve those pains. Between 1905 and 1909, Edvard Munch was confined to sanatoriums on many occasions. His mental health greatly improved after his time in these facilities. Munch's art transformed as a result of this. Since he began to feel healthier and more psychologically stable, his paintings began to appear brighter and less dreary. Frida Kahlo was a Mexican artist who lived from 1907 until 1954. Her work is notable for portraying difficult subjects including loss, grief, and tragic events. Kahlo was stricken with polio when she was 6 years old. The artist was seriously injured in a bus accident when he was 18 years old. Her injuries caused her to be in pain for the rest of her life. Kahlo suffered from melancholy and attempted suicide as a result of her emotionally draining marriage to Diego Rivera. Despite, or perhaps because of, her varied hardships, Kahlo was a strong-willed woman. Frida Kahlo is said to have suffered from many mental health issues, including post-traumatic stress disorder and bipolar illness. According to experts, Kahlo's self-portrait with cropped hair, 1940, is a masterful expression of her uniqueness, suffering, and power all at once. Kahlo is seen wearing a masculine clothing and having her hair chopped off with scissors in her hand. The free hair is all over the floor around her. "Look, if I liked you, it was because of your hair," the wording at the top of the artwork says, referring to a well-known Mexican song. "I don't love you anymore now that you don't have any hair." after her divorce from Diego Rivera in 1939, she made this artwork. As a result, Self-Portrait with Cropped Hair, 1940, might be understood as a picture of Kahlo's suffering and, at times, melancholy as a result of her relationship with Rivera. Despite this, she portrayed herself as a strong and independent woman. By depicting herself in a suit and with short hair, Kahlo accentuated qualities that are normally associated with men. Mark Rothko, the artist's late works. In 1903, Mark Rothko was born. Rothko was a pioneer of color field painting, with his huge works distinguished by a flat and expressive use of color. His paintings are meant to elicit a deeper emotional response from the audience by presenting sensations that are inherent to the human mind. In 1968, Mark Rothko was diagnosed with an aneurysm, and his doctor advised him to adopt a better lifestyle. The artist, on the other hand, continued to drink and smoke. He also struggled with anxiety and sadness. In the year 1970, he committed suicide. The Black on Gray series of paintings by Mark Rothko were created shortly before his death. These somber paintings have been viewed by some as images of Mark Rothko's sadness and as signs of his suicide. However, other critics argue that the series is not a reflection of the artist's deteriorating mental state. The series, according to Mark Rothko, is about dying. The series stands in stark contrast to Rothko's earlier, more vibrant works. This may encourage people to look for a link between the series and Rothko's mental health issues.